Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka, and welcome to episode 22. My guest this week, Dr. Tara. She's a professor. She's a sex and relationships coach, host of the Luvbites by Dr. Tara podcast. She's incredible. She's a lot of fun, ton of knowledge. We talk a little bit about how she got to become a sex and relationships coach. We talk a little bit about her work as a sex and relationships coach, some of the things she goes through, some of her experiences with real life sex parties. We talk about why DJ Khaled is a fucking asshole. And we talk a little bit about, towards the end of the episode, about the taboo of non-consensual sex, and Dr. Tara goes through the burner. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Dr. Tara.
This week's conversation.
Dr. Tara, welcome to Sex Party. I'm so happy you're here. How are you?
I am doing amazing. And let's say this is not my first time going to a sex party.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah. Well, that's good, and we're probably gonna get to that. So,
It was my first time with you, Dustin.
yeah. This is a new experience today.
It's a new thing. Yeah, it's a new thing.
Yeah.
Show me what you got, Dustin.
Hell yeah. I will. Okay, so for the people who might not know who you are, they've never seen you, they've never, heard your name, heard your voice before. Can you intro yourself and talk a little bit about who you are, what you do?
Yes, of course, my pleasure. Hey, everyone. My name is Dr. Tara, and I am a tenured professor at Cal State Fullerton. I teach sexual communication and relationship communication. So it's courses about sex and relationship, but it focuses on the behavior. What can we do to have a better sex life? What can we do to have a better relationship? So that's kind of what I teach in at the university. And then, so that's like my daytime job. And I have a sex and relationship coaching practice here in Los Angeles, where I do coaching, where like you can come into my office or we can do it through Zoom. And I coach people based on their sex and relationship goals. So if you come in and you're like, oh, okay, like we're a couple, we've been dating for 5 years, we want to open up our relationship, but we don't know how to start. I coach you through that. So I like facilitate that discussion. I help you come up with rules. I help you start. I help you have a conversation. So things like that would be what I do for my sex coaching practice. Other than that, I just love my podcast as well. It's Luvbites by Dr. Tara podcast. I started it last year and it's been a blast. I talk to sex experts from all around the world. And yeah, it's all about sexual exploration.
Yeah, the podcast is really, I mean, you have a lot of really cool guests. I think people would not anticipate like the variety of guests that which
The variety,
yeah, like because there's just different people, but it's all relates back to the same core stuff, which is
yeah.
which is like me. I like drool over that, right? Because I have this show and I want to have very cool, fun, different people like yourself, right? But I'm like, wow, she has some fucking amazing guests on the show. So
Yeah, I've been like super grateful for my guests. But yeah, it ranges so much too, from like an academic, like top number one researcher on female sexual arousal to like, someone that owns the largest sex club in New York to like yeah, a sex worker to like just like everyone and everything that serves the purpose of sexual wellness and exploration.
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. And I try to drive this home to people as much as I can. And maybe I haven't said it enough on this show, but sex is everywhere. Sex is everything. I mean, you could have anybody on a sex and relationship show and it relates because duh, right?
Yes.
And I don't think people really think about that too much. I think people just sort of want to fit everything into a little fucking box, which is
Yeah.
so annoying.
It's kind of like your podcast. Like, what category is your podcast? Like, it asks you, like, what's your category?
I know I like sat and stared at mine and was like, "What?" or whatever. I think I wound up on like health and fitness, which makes no sense. I mean, it does, but it
Right? Like,
doesn't.
I feel like it's everything. It could be in business.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. And they only let you choose one on Apple. Like, come on, guys, let's work on this a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish it was more inclusive. Like, it is a lot of things. Like, it's also culture, it's
Hmm.
also comedy, it's also
Yeah,
like, it's so many things.
yeah, it really is. And I think that like, that unlimited view that you have and I have, right? I want everyone to have that because I think
Yeah.
people see sex as like, oh, I'm gonna go out with the boys and get laid or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's like serving a fucking need or a purpose or whatever, and then that's it. And I think that's cool, right? Like you want to get off, you bust one out or whatever the fuck your thing is, and that's great. But I think it clearly, obviously, it's bigger than that, and I think that's where these conversations like the one we're having today really fucking matter. And I like to flesh it out, no pun intended or whatever, but like I like to really flesh out the idea that sex is more. Um,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
we're off to a good start. Okay, so w- if you can, way back, right, what made you want to do this kind of work? I mean, was there a certain experience? Were there multiple experiences? Was it something that was like kind of chasing you, nagging you?
Yeah, yeah. I like this question because we all care about sex at some level, right? But like, what makes you care so much to do this? I would say it's a combination of like where I grew up, and then like my failure as a young adult
Really?
that wanted that kind of became catalyst of me getting into this line of work. I was born and raised in Thailand. So I'm like not from the US. And then I moved to the US to Los Angeles for school. So I came here as a young adult, right? But I was born and raised in Thailand. So I grew up in Thailand, and it's very sexually conservative. And like growing up, I had no like sex education. We didn't have sex education in school, not even like the sexual health kind, like the kind where they teach you how to wear a condom on a banana, not even that kind. So nothing at all. And my family never talked about sex. So like I feel like I was sexually repressed for so long as a teenager, but I was sexually active. That's the thing. Try being a sexually active person in a sexually repressed culture. And
Yeah.
be a girl too. Being a girl, like, if you were a guy and you were like a playboy and you fuck a lot, like that's wild, but that's cool because you're a guy. But like when you're a girl and you're 14 and you want to fuck, like that's not the culture that accepts that, right? So I've always felt like an odd one out always. Like I was like, oh, I'm not a good girl. Like I'm not a girlfriend material. I'm not a wife material. I'm this girl that like craves a lot of sex. And then I came to the US and I came to Los Angeles, and I'm like, oh wow, there's a lot more open-minded people, a lot more like talking about sex, a lot more like wearing different kind of clothing that show who you are. Um but then I was still inside I wasn't developed. I was still the person that was ashamed of being sexual, that have a lot of guilt for having a bunch of sex with random people. Like casual sex is where I feel, good for having sex, but also so bad for having sex. And in my early 20s, I had a bunch of sex with a bunch of different people, and a lot of them was not good sex. And I think that's why at some point later in my life, like now I'm in my 30s, like at some point later in my 20s, I'm like, oh my God, fuck. Like I have lived this like mediocre sex life for so long that it became, something that is like it stabs you every day. Literally, it stabs you every day. Like, can I live like this for the next 40 years or do I change? And I think a lot of people can resonate with that. Like, how old ever you are, you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Like, do you want to live the next whatever years of your life like this? Or do you want to change? And that's where I started exploring and became like try to do different things to reach my sexual awakening, if you will. What about your story? Like, why did you start a podcast called Sex Party?
Who knows? No, I'm kidding. So for me, I grew up like early 20s. Some reports would put it before 20, where I was really in the party scene, not the sex party scene. I have to state that it was more like the nightlife. And as I grew up, I started to be more and more successful in my hometown, a little bit outside of my hometown. I did some stuff in LA, I did some stuff in Las Vegas, Chicago, and I was throwing these parties, nightclubs, bars, opening nightclubs, bars. It kept getting bigger and bigger. The budgets kept getting huger, and my life just kept getting real, like very, very wild, right? Not only what was I like the party dude, but I had been the party dude for like 10 plus years, and I had not really existed in the same realm that I would say that I don't know, normal people or my friends or family, no one really understood. And I was having a lot of sex, like a ton of sex, and I was also fascinated by sex, and all of my conversations around me were all about sex, and it became apparent to me that it was something that was important to me. And sort of like when the pandemic hit, I was already sort of looking for like what's my next fucking thing, right? And I wanted to have these conversations on a wider stage, on a bigger stage, with more people. And I had so many questions and I had so much fucking energy towards it. And I combined the party with the sex, and I was like, oh, sex party, that makes sense. So, so that's sort of my story in terms of how the show became. I mean, there's a ton more there, um and I'm totally open to talk about it, but I just think, to me, I feel like, I've noticed things, living sort of an extraordinary life, having
Mhm.
that much sex, being the person I am, um, doing the things that I've done. I've noticed things that I think are like restrictive, that hold all of us back, right? Whether it's men judging women for being too slutty or whatever, or like this broken idea of what a relationship is supposed to be, um, all of these things, and so I wanted to talk about that stuff hardcore, and I wanted to put my own personal sort of opinion and thoughts into it, but I also wanted to bring really fucking smart, um energized people who knew fuckloads more than I did, like yourself, every week, and here we are. So yeah,
Here we are.
yeah, no,
That's awesome. The more
yeah,
the merrier, because you know what? We've been like sexually repressed for so long. And I think that recently, with like the media portraying a little bit more and more sex and sex positive events and different types of relationships, the better. Because then people who are, who live in like a small town, who think they, a girl at like 18 years old who thinks she has to get married in 2 years, or else she's going to hell and she has to like serve her husband. Like, the more people we can help feel like that's not the life that you have to live,
right.
the better.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I mean. And it's come up in the last couple episodes, I think, just here and there on this show, is that I think, you know why are we so fucking judgmental? Why are mainly
Mhm.
men so fucking crazed about, she's a slut, I've never whatever, but then we expect
Mhm.
the woman that we're dating to be just a total porn star hooker in bed
Yeah.
with whatever. It makes no sense. And I think the sooner that we just get the fuck over it, the happier everybody is. Hence, a fucking better culture overall, maybe, right? So like,
Yes.
why are we holding
Yes.
on to these little fucking stupid things? And so
Mhm.
I just am trying to keep having those conversations, because
Yeah.
I think they're fascinating. It stirs up a little shit, which is fine. I'm used to that. Whatever. But it's the truth. Like, I've been in relationships where my past has been a thing. I've gotten jealous when I was, in my super younger days, in college or whatever. I've gotten jealous of, oh, this or that or whatever. So like, I get it, right? But like, come on, let's fucking
Mhm.
grow up here, right?
Mhm. Oh, yeah. I mean, I still talk to some, like, guys, like, younger guys that are like, "Oh, yeah, like, and I'm taking this girl out, and, like, I'm only her second person." As in, like, it's, oh my god, such a much better thing than another girl who has slept with 50 people. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Why are you saying it weird like that? Like like, "Oh, yeah, I'm going out with this girl, and she's super hot, and I'm only her second person." Like, yeah, like, what the fuck does that mean? And why does that matter? And then you decide to date this person for a long time, and then realize later, like, oh, she doesn't have the experience, and maybe you don't connect that much. And then now you're like, oh, I'm bored. I want to go have sex with someone else. So I'm gonna cheat on her and go
hmm
have sex with another girl that knows how to have better sex. Like, it's a curse.
It is, and it like every time that situation happens, I think there's like a series of there's like a 360 fracture. It goes in every direction. Everyone's affected, and so it keeps happening and happening and happening. So of course everything is just trashed. Everything is fractured, and then we wonder, oh, I think I don't know what people, especially men. I don't know what they're assuming, like when they get with someone and they're like grilling them about their sexual past. Like, don't you want someone who's experienced? Don't you want someone who's, and that's, I just, again, I think the sooner we get the, like, just fucking swallow it, get the fuck over it, dude. Shut the
Mhm.
fuck up.
Mhm.
As soon as we get to a place where, um, I mean, obviously, people want to be, safe having sex. That's a
Right.
huge thing, right? So once we get past that, I just feel like there's a better place after that stupid conversation of how many people have you
Mhm.
slept with, and whatever. Who cares? Like,
Yeah.
that's not a question I would ever ask. And if someone were to ask me that, I would be like, you don't want to know. I mean, you don't want to, so that's where I'm at with it. And I think your work, it does a lot for that same mission. I think, to destigmatize some of the this little shit, because it's this little shit that's really preventing
Yeah.
us from being, open-minded and a better culture. And it's like so much stress. Like, what the fuck?
Exactly. And like to live our full potential. Because I
hmm
do 100% think that sexual wellness contributes to a wellness of every part of life. So, let's say you're an entrepreneur, but your sex life and your love and your relationship is shit. That's going to, come off negatively on your business and other things. For
yeah.
example, like, if you go watch, I'm not sure which show he was on, but it was a podcast. Elon Musk. He was like, "Yeah, I'm miserable. Like, I want a relationship." And that at that time, I think he was just breaking up with what's her name, the redhead girl. She's been on the news recently.
Amber Heard.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
He was like, I'm miserable. Like, I want a girlfriend. I want a good relationship. Like, I have all of these things, but I don't have I'm lonely. Oh, I think that's what he said. I'm lonely.
right.
I'm really lonely. And ultimately, I think regardless of how much front fakeness and ego one has, saying like, "Oh, I don't want any relationship," or like, I don't need love. I just want to fuck." Like, that's cool. Maybe that's the phase you are in right now, but ultimately speaking, in human theory and, basic human psychology, we all need affection.
Yeah. Yeah. And
We all
that's
need affection to live.
Yeah, and that's
Who doesn't want to
fascinating.
be loved?
Very so weird. Yeah, it's very strange. And like I'm in my personal life, I'm like, oh no, just get it. I'm that way right now. Like, oh no, get away from me. I don't want, because that's a whole fucking can of worms in my personal life.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that I'm not fascinated by the idea. It doesn't mean that I'm not
Uh-huh.
open to the idea. It doesn't mean that that's not a thing that one day I'll be into. And
Your desire in the future. Yeah.
sure, because I am a
How
human.
old are you?
I'm gonna make you guess,
Okay.
and
Like
don't worry about
you worked
offending
in
me.
nightlife.
I did.
You worked in nightlife for a long time, right?
Hmm.
So you had to be over 21 when you started working in nightlife.
Well, no, I mean, I started working in nightlife when I was like 19. Um,
So you weren't even legal to get in, but you started working on
kind of a little bit. I had a fake
okay,
ID.
so like I don't know, 31?
Wow, no. So I am actually going to turn 41 next month. But
Oh
I
my god, you
will
look so young.
thank you very much. I will take your 31 and I will keep it here with me, and I appreciate that. No, that's amazing.
You look so young. Okay, so like a lot of times that when I have like guys, men clients that come to me, wanting some clarity about like what they want in a relationship, what do they want in life, do they want kids, what kind of like sexual relationship do they want, how to date more effectively, things like that. Usually like when guys come to me, that kind of guy like comes to me as a client, they're usually in their 40s because
Mm-hmm.
they're like at a point where like shit, I've had so much sex
Yeah.
for like 20 years
Yeah.
and like now I'm ready to be with someone that's more stable, that loves me, that cares for me, that I do the same for them. So I don't know, who knows, but at the same time I also want to say there's nothing wrong with like loving casual relationships and that's for you forever. But, I mean, look at Hugh Hefner. He like lived that lifestyle and he owns his truth. He owned RIP his truth.
Yeah.
And like at some point he was like, I fell in love with this one girl, but then it didn't last that long. But like that's okay. So I think I respect that like people have different desires for their life. And if right now for you is not to complicate things and to have casual sex, good for you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I stopped aging when I became a vampire, so I've got all the time in the world.
Nice.
No, no.
So you'll
So
live forever.
yeah. Yeah, well, and that's the thing too is like I really value my space, my alone time, right? But it totally gets lonely. It totally gets
Mhm.
but I think I'm at a place right now where I feel like I have so much on my own plate and so much on top of all the anxiety and shit that I have that I'm carrying around. I have all these things that I want to do. I have this fucking show that I'm working really hard on, all these things. And I'm like, A, do I even want to crack open someone else's disaster bullshit? And B, um, I've got stuff that I'm trying to do. I don't want to be like distracted from that and whatever. So those are
Yeah.
sort of some of my issues. There's probably a ton more deeper, darker shit that's going on,
Uh-huh.
but whatever. It's there. And
It's whatever is there.
we'll get to it someday, right? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've been in a relationship and nobody ever believes me. They're like, "Oh, you must have sex all the time. You must be really getting it in." And it's like, dude, how would why would you just cuz I have a sex podcast, you assume that I'm just banging everybody? Like it's
Are you
real.
bisexual?
No, I'm heterosexual. And the
Okay.
thing the thing is it's like people just again they make assumptions where if you have a sex podcast, right, or if you you're really open about sex and having conversations about it, like, oh, you must date a lot of women and da 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 da, and it's like it's never what people think,
Yeah, yeah.
ever.
I mean, I would say I average about like 4 times a week having
Yeah,
sex.
well, that's
Yeah.
great.
Cuz someone told me that they have sex every day, sometimes like hours a day. I'm like, "Do you not have a job?"
Maybe that's their job.
Oh yeah, if that's your job and you enjoy it, man, power to you.
Uh-huh.
But I literally don't have the time and physical energy for multiple hours of sex every day, but I would say I'd average like 4 times a week, and that makes me happy. That's kind of the sexual frequency that I desire. And I often talk about, communication, with my followers, the with my students. I talk about how like people should be communicating their expectations more, because we all have expectations.
Hmm.
There's a whole like human theory behind it. It's called expectancy violations theory. And we go in every situation, every date, every casual sex encounter, one night stand, relationship, marriage, everything we go into, we do have expectations. Even though some people like to say like, oh my god, I'm really not expecting anything like going into this bullshit. That's not how humans work. You can control expectations. You have expectations
Yeah.
naturally, and it's better, more effective to communicate your expectation, what you want in that particular scenario. Like if you're going into a one night stand, like, hey, I'm not looking for something serious, but I'm looking to have an amazing sex. Like, I'm looking to fuck tonight and I want to have amazing sex with you. Are you down? Like,
Yeah.
let's
No,
do it.
that's great.
Right?
Yeah.
Communicating expectations is better rather than like keeping the other person thinking like, oh, is this a relationship? Where are we going? Da, da, da. In that case, I feel like it's toxic. And honestly, a lot of people with I mean, research would show a lot of people that have like lower self-esteem, they can pretend and like project themselves confidently, but at the end of the day, if your foundation is shaky, you have a low sexual self-esteem, like that's what you're going to do, is you're going to become toxic, and you're going to project this like toxicity and omission of truth with other people, and these people need to be called out.
Yeah. No, no, no. That's great. Yeah. And to go back originally to what you said before we tackle that one, because that's a big one. 4 times a week for someone who's a professor who has a practice of helping people, figure out how to have better sex and relationships, and then who has a podcast. I mean, if you're getting it in 4 times a week, that's pretty goddamn good. So
Thank
congratulations there.
you.
Yeah.
We prioritize it. My partner and I prioritize sex and prioritize talking about sex. We talk about sex a lot, and I think it helps.
So when you say prioritize, do you mean like, okay, Sunday night, you're like, when are the 4 times? Are you like scheduling it out, or is it just like, hey, we need to hit it a bunch of times, or whatever? Like, what do you mean prioritize?
Yeah, I think prioritize is not necessarily scheduling. Prioritize is like in the way, like, in our lifestyle. So, for example, if we know like we're going out to dinner with friends and we're gonna get like drunk and partying and drinking and eat a bunch,
Yeah.
we tend to like get home early, shower, like have sex first, then go out with friends and feast.
Nice.
Like that's how we prioritize it, because we know if we're just like not prioritizing it, go out, when we come back we'll be too tired to have sex.
Yeah, and see, if more people had that conversation, like, "Hey, honey, we're going out with the fucking, the Smiths tonight.
Yeah.
They talk a lot and whatever, and let's have sex before." I feel like people just either feel awkward or think it's stupid, or maybe they think their partner is going to
Mhm.
shame them or something for asking. Um,
Mhm.
but then here you are, a professional at doing this, who's doing this, and it seems so easy breezy. So maybe give some advice on how people can do what you're doing.
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question. I think that's a great question. And the very first thing I would say everyone should start doing is having a sexy check-in.
Okay.
Having a sexy check-in.
So do you want to define what a sexy check-in is?
Like a relationship check-in. A sexy check-in is a sit down and asking a question, asking a check-in question. How are we doing? Like, how's our sex life this month? How would you rate our sex life this month? Right? How do you feel sexually? What else can I do to make you feel better sexually? How are we doing sexually? So, like, this type of relationship check-in, which I call sexy check-in, is super necessary, especially for people who are like just started like dating. Put it into your relationship so that it's a normal thing later. It's more difficult if you've been together, like, let's say more than 10 years. It's definitely more difficult to bring up, but you can be the person that's courageous, that's making the positive change in your relationship, and start asking questions. If you don't ask questions, you have no idea how well the other person is doing sexually. What if you're dating and you think that, oh my God, like we have such great sex life, and you didn't know she's telling her friends, oh my God, our sex life's fucking terrible. He's terrible at like going down on me. He doesn't know how to finger me. He doesn't know how to fuck me. Like, how can you know unless you ask?
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
again,
So start having a sexy check in.
right, common sense, but then I think people get nervous. So, what would you
They
say to
do.
people? So, what would you say to those people who get nervous? Like, suck it up, buddy, or what?
Suck it up, buddy would be great, but I I would say here's here's the first easy step of doing this. Yeah. Um, write down what you want to say first in your journal, like whatever journal piece of paper. Write down what you want to say, practice saying it. Find a good time, like not some time where like they're rushed or you have to do something or go somewhere, like maybe when you're hiking, when you're drinking coffee, uh and then bring it up. So write it down first, so you're not just improvising. Write it down, practice saying it with yourself in the car, in the bathroom. And you know what, like delivering it with a partner will be easier when you have already practiced.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
practice saying it and then say it.
right.
There is no magic pill that you can take and you become significantly confident. Everyone who's confident have practiced doing things that they're good at for a million times, and then
Mhm.
they become really good at something. So you have to start somewhere.
Yeah, I fucking love that. And this practice actually leads us like perfectly into my next question, which is how has your work in the sex and relationships field, right? How has that sort of influenced or infiltrated your sex life? I mean, you talked about it a little bit, right? But I'm wondering if you can go more in depth.
Yeah, I think it allows me to be more open to changes, differences, and growth. And like, let me see what that means. Like, let's say if one day my partner comes out to me and he's like, I'm bisexual and I want to explore having sex with men. Like, because I work in this realm, because I understand the psychology and the behavior around these things, like, I would be open to helping him explore. Right. So I would say it allows me to like accept and understand different types of sexual behaviors and desires and wants and needs. And that's like the first way it changed me. Because when I was younger, I used to think, very like heteronormative thoughts. Right. But now I don't think like that at all. When a couple comes out to me, to my practice, and it's like, hey, like, we're thinking about an open relationship, I don't judge them versus like some traditional therapist might. They might be like, why do you want to go there? How about we work on your relationship first? Right. I don't do that. I don't fucking do that. I'm like, you want to open it? Let me help you. Like,
Yeah.
so that's kind of where I'm at with my own life. Is like I'm very open to pretty much everything. And the one thing that I would say help facilitate all of that is the communication skill that I have.
Yeah, and like it- it- that it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, something that you might have been good at in the beginning, right? But it's gotten so much better as you've gone along with your work and your training and your education.
Yeah.
Again, because it's something that you're practicing.
Yeah.
Like you
It
just
takes practice.
exactly. And that's the thing, and that's what you said, like, write the thing down, practice in the mirror, like, "I wanna have sex
Yeah.
on Saturday," or whatever
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
they're
Write it down.
yeah, but the same thing, like, they're practicing that. You have practiced this communication, and, it's the same thing. Communication, communication.
Yeah. I definitely live my own truth. I tell people all the time, like, I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. So the stuff that I tell you that works, I do them too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, has there ever been anything that you've come to in your work that's really kind of been like opened your eyes or turned you on, and then you've gone home and been like, "Yo, we need to try this thing," or "What do you think about this?" or those sorts of things. Like in research, you're like, "Holy shit, I didn't even think about that," and then it's like, boom.
I would say group sex.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about group sex.
Great for the title of this show, your show, Sex Party. Well, I would say group sex because when I would never like when I was younger, in my 20s, I would never be able to go to a sex party or like accept seeing my partner having sex with other people.
Hmm.
But through learning, through my education and training and my practice, uh, I have learned that for me at least, my sexual attitude is relational and recreational, meaning I have sex to relate to someone, and then it's also a fun thing that I do. It's recreational. Versus some people, and here's a little lesson, versus some people, their sexual attitude is a lot more conservative. Maybe sex is only for connecting with a committed partner. Like, fine, you do you, that's your attitude. We all have different sexual attitude, right? So for me, I understand my sexual attitude, and then I ask the same quiz questions. Like, there's a quiz that you can take and it tells you your sexual attitude. So I do the same questions with my partner early on when we started dating, and I realized like we have similar sexual attitudes. So all of these things, like, it helps me with my relationship so much. That's why like my current relationship is the best relationship I've ever had in my life, is because I use all of these things that I'm learning, especially like being open-minded to non-traditional sexual behaviors, things like group sex, things like swinging, things like being dynamic with our boundaries. Like, people ask me, are you in an open relationship? I always say, we're in dynamic boundaries. And they're like, what the fuck's dynamic boundaries? I said, it's not open all the time, but it's also not monogamous all the time, right? It's dynamic boundaries. It's pretty self explanatory if you think about it.
Hmm.
But like, let's say, Dustin, let me ask you, you're in your 40s. Like, would you want to have a dynamic boundaries relationship? Would you want to have an open relationship, or would you not want to have any kind of romantic relationship?
I mean, I'm open to what the fuck ever. You know what I mean? Like, I know what I'm into, and I just think, it's been a long time since I've been in any kind of relationship. But I've actually thought about that a lot doing this show. Like, would I be in an open relationship? Would I be in, the dynamic boundary? And they both seem pretty cool to me. And I just think, um, I'm open to those things. Whereas before
Yeah,
before I might
yeah.
be like, I don't know, or whatever, like, 20 years ago or whenever.
Yeah, especially men. Men find it hard to swallow. Really, literally find it hard to swallow uh, when it comes to group sex or open, because they want to go do their own. They want to go fuck other people, but they don't want their girlfriend to be fucking other people.
Yeah.
And that's the ego. That's the ego. That's
Mm.
totally the ego. What else would it be? You want to have her as your possession. She doesn't have the right to go fuck other guys, but you do want to go fuck other girls. Like, that's literally the ego blocking you from allowing pleasure into your life,
Right.
right? When I ask men, like, do you want to have a threesome? They always say yes. Always say yes. But then I say, are you open to male, male, female? Then they always say no. They say, I want male, female, female.
Yeah. Of course they do.
So, yeah, of course they do,
Yeah.
right? But then, like, why? If we study it deep down to the psychology behind, like, why would a man say yes to a threesome, but only with two women and not with two men? It's the ego.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that again we're sort of butting up against these fucking ideas, right? That are very it's very double standard to like the degree that it's just like it makes me laugh at this point because there's no equal anything, let alone
Right.
sexual opportunity, sexual pleasure. Of course. And this is like, you know, it's a bigger conversation. It's like, okay, now we're starting to get to the fractures that we talked about earlier, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, no wonder dudes are better at, like, beating off than having sex with
Uh-huh.
their partner, and no wonder women can't get off because everybody's prioritizing this, like, weird, selfish, sort of like drilled in hollow view. And it's really,
Yeah.
if we got rid of that and just had a fucking party, right? um so
Do
yeah.
you like when you have sex with a woman, like do you go down on them first?
Yeah, I see. I'm someone who doesn't have any problem with that. If I want to do it, if and I always think that you should always want to do whatever it is that you're doing, And so there have been people I haven't gone down on. There have been people that
Mm.
I have, right? Because I want to do that. And I don't think, like,
Mhm.
this idea that um dudes just think, like, it's mainly dudes, right? I mean, I guess women too, but like
Yeah.
people just think like, oh, they didn't suck my dick, or they didn't fucking go down on me, whatever. It's like, maybe they didn't want to. So yes, like, I have no problem eating a woman's vagina. Like, I
Uh-huh.
don't get it. I don't get what the fucking problem is. If it's like a particular
A lot of guys
reason why
don't.
I don't. Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, you know.
Yeah, a lot of guys don't. I think it's DJ Khaled. I think he said like kings don't go down on women. And I'm like, "Oh my god. Shut up."
What a fucking idiot, right? I saw that
Yeah.
interview. Every time I see something on Instagram with DJ Khaled, I always put in the comments, like, "Is he still not eating his woman's pussy or whatever?" Because I
Oh
don't.
my god, stop. Is that what you do?
Every time, every single
High
time,
five.
dude. I mean, hell yeah, man. Because first of all, what, it's your wife, bro, and second of all,
Yeah, it's
you
really
look like a
sad.
fucking idiot, more so than you normally do. And, like, respect to him and all of his music and all that shit. It's great. Everyone can fucking get down in the club to all his stuff, right? Cool. But, like, eat your woman's fucking vagina. What the fuck, dude? God.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So like that would not be someone I invite to my sex party.
Right. So back to this idea of you participating in group sex, and was this stuff that you did before you became a professional? Or have you been doing this a while, or was it something that you came to after working in the sex field?
I think, being a professor, like it's not really, I wouldn't say it's like the sex field. I would say my field is more like an academia, if
Sure,
anything.
sure.
But no, I don't the first time that I attended a group situation. Let me think. The first time that I attended a group situation was already after I graduated from my PhD. So I would say, yeah, I was already studying these things and teaching these things. So that was like the first time I was in it. And the first time was I was very apprehensive,
Mm.
but then I realized like, wow, everyone is so like open and loving. So I'm like, fuck it, like let's do it. And my friends that go to these things would say the same because like I have friends that are in all kinds of profession, like finance, lawyer, professor, and they go to their own like sex parties in wherever they live. I would say prominently in New York and LA and Chicago.
Mhm.
But they would say the same thing, that like typically it's very intellectual people and typically it's very loving. It's nothing like porn. It's not like what you've seen on porn.
Yeah. Right. I've heard that too, like, doing this show, that it's very consent driven, right? Consent based
Yes.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Or it's not like a fucking free for all where everyone's grabbing it or whatever. Unless that's like
No, not at all.
pre-consented to, yeah. Um
Yeah. Yeah, and if you talk to people who organize sex parties at a grand scale, like people in New York that have, a sex club, or like people that do hacienda or NSFW, where it's like a big scale event, where you have to apply, like through application, you become a member and they vet you, all of that, like you will know that it's all very consensual, and everyone's so good at communication.
Yeah. Yeah, cuz I mean, you fucking have to be, right? But it's like
Yeah.
all of the social cues and things that you're like, "Oh, is she into
Yeah.
me?" Whatever, that's sort of gone. So it sort of takes away that
Right.
sort of anxiety, and then you're left with everyone's clearly here. I don't know
Right.
how far they're willing to go. Hey, let's find out.
Exactly. And they're so good at communicating. Yeah. Like looking at you and just like, hey, I'm so attracted to you. Can I kiss you? Like it's like no front. Just
Yeah.
communicate.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I think that I think that that's a great model for how other things could be, right? Like, why are we not applying the sex party model to other
Yeah.
situations in life? Jesus Christ, people at a sex party communicate more than people in a relationship.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good saying. You should make that a reel.
Yeah, I'm totally on it. Okay, so I'm wondering if, in just a general way, and there can be as many as you can think of, sure, but what are things currently in this moment that you're seeing are like the big problems, themes that people are having with sex and relationships right now? Because clearly, like, we're in a fucking weirdo time. I mean, every time is a weirdo time, but where it's extra weirdo recently, right? So I'm wondering if
Yeah.
there are things that you see that, like, oh, okay, it's becoming a pattern. It's coming up with a lot of people.
The biggest issue that couples have is different sex drives.
Okay, so that seems like that seems like something that's been around forever. Um,
Yeah, yeah, it has been around forever. It's just they have not talked about it until now. I would say the biggest issue that single people have is the inability to find a committed partner. And that's not just women. I think the stereotype is like women want to find a relationship, men just want to fuck. That's not true at all. I actually have a lot of 30 like men in their 30s and 40s that come to me and wanting to find clarity when it comes to dating and relationship, because they do want a relationship. uh, that has also been going on forever, but just not talked about, because in the media it's always like the guy isn't the person that wants a relationship, it's the girl, right?
yeah, right.
Yeah. And the last thing that I would say is a trend, and research found this. Actually, there's new research that she just published it in a book, um, that shows that Gen Zs are not having sex as much.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so you go back to the first one with the couple, right? The mismatched, fucking misfired,
Uh huh.
libidos, sex drives. Um, and I actually, like, people that I talk to, just in my I don't know, I wouldn't say normal life, but just people that I people that around the show that have questions, like, they, hey, this is whatever, what do you think? And I have to say, well, I'm not an expert, I'm kind of an idiot, but this is what I think. That's why I have people like you on the show, right? Because you're the expert. But people come to me all the time, and that seems to be one that I get a lot, like my partner. And to be honest, I mean, because I talk to more females than I do males, but um, a lot of women feel like their sex drive is greater than their partners,
Hmm.
and they don't know what to do.
Hmm.
My thing is always talk to them, right? Like, communicate what you whatever. But how
Uh
would you
huh.
what's your advice for that? What's something they can work towards to help fix the situation?
I love that you said that is usually the females saying they have a higher sex drive than their male partner, because the stereotype is men always want sex and their wives or girlfriends don't want sex.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the
Always.
stereotype. Like on my TikTok, there's a video with like 3.5 million views, and it's all guys in the comments saying their girlfriends don't want to have sex with them. Like, I'm like, okay, that might be a lot of men, but there's also a lot of women that maybe are they're not speaking up. But there's a lot of women too that have a higher sex drive than their partner, me included. My previous relationship, I had a much higher sex drive than my partner, and it made me feel like shit, really. So that's why I so understand people that are in a relationship where they have a higher sex drive than their partner, because it makes you feel like you're unwanted, undesired, not sexy, not attractive when your partner doesn't want to have sex with you. Like, obviously the like go to advice that everyone would say is to communicate. But my advice would be creative. Like, if they don't want to have penetrative sex, what other kinds of things that are sexual in nature that allows you to feel sexy, that satisfies that sex drive, the need for sex for you? For example, can you tell them like, hey, can you like finger me? Can you eat me out? Can we do like a little massage, like sensual massages? Can we do other things that are sexual? Like, can I give you a hand job while you put a vibrator on me? Anything that involves your partner that is sexual in nature will have a like pretty similar effect to having actual penetrative sex. And that is a better way than removing them all together and just do it by yourself.
Yeah, or like going out and fucking cheating or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've done that. I've cheated on people and I have been cheated on, so I know that it's shitty all like anyway, it's shitty.
Yeah, same here, same here, same here. But I think also too, those are experiences that make you who you are. Those are things that
Yeah.
they may be shitty, but for me, it's like, what are we gonna do about it? That's truth. That
Yeah.
that that that
Already happened.
happened. Yeah, exactly. And that's fucking amazing advice.
So like when you cheated, why did you cheat? Like, was it a sex thing? Was there no chemistry? Like, what were you not getting from that relationship that you cheated?
Which time? No,
Yeah,
no,
well, the
no.
most recent time, let's say.
The most recent time that I
I
cheated
like
in
that
a
you said most
relation.
time. Like, you've cheated multiple times.
Yes, I have. I have cheated multiple times.
Yeah.
And
It's good
I've
that we're
been,
talking about it.
yeah, no, and that's the thing about the show is like I refuse to be like anything is open game. You can ask me whatever, and I'll answer. And you have on this episode. And I fucking love it. You're bringing it. So I think I never looked at it as though this person's not giving me this, so I'm going elsewhere for it. I just think that I wanted to have sex with somebody else. I just think that I wanted to have sex with someone new, right? Someone was intriguing to me. I was attracted to them. And
Mm,
I'm not good at denying myself pleasures. I'm not good at denying myself things that I want. I have in the same breath, I'm gonna say, um, I'm really self disciplined, on
mm,
most things. But I think when I cheat, I make the decision to cheat. I don't think that it's the partner's fault. Maybe there's
mm,
something deeper psychologically going on. I mean, that relationship wasn't a great one, to be honest. But I don't. That
mhm.
never really entered. Like, this relationship sucks. I'm looking elsewhere for affection. It was just about sex for me.
Yeah. Have you ever taken a sensation seeking quiz?
I have not.
Okay, like cuz I can probably guess that you have high uh sensation seeking tendency, and this good news makes you a great candidate for open relationships and polyamorous relationships,
Yeah.
because that's like kind of the first, like, I would say, indicator of someone who would benefit from an open relationship. If you
Sure.
have like really high sensation seeking tendency, it's hard for you to be in a long term monogamous relationship, really, because you can't change who you are.
No, and like in the long term committed stuff, I start to feel like really like trapped and suffocated and
Mhm.
like oh my God, this is really bad. We need to get out of here or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then you couple that with the fact that most in my past, like the pattern that I've seen in most of my relationships is that I start dating someone and they're really drawn in by like the energy and like the parties and all of the public persona stuff, and then once they
Mm.
kind of have me in a relationship, they're like, oh, like, you know, no more of that, like I don't want you
Oh, yeah.
on TV or on the radio or doing, like whatever. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
wait, what? So then you have my fear of commitment on top of that. And then that is like this breeding ground for like fighting and disagreements and one-upmanship
Yeah.
and all the fucking bullshit. But yeah, I mean, if you want to direct me like to the quiz or whatever, like I'll gladly
Yeah.
take it or put it in the comments or in the
Yeah.
show notes too or whatever. But no, I mean, that's fascinating.
Yeah, there's so many things that like the quizzes that you should take, because like fun fact, apart from teaching sexual communication, like I'm a trained statistician, and the other course that I teach at the university is quantitative research methods. And in quantitative research methods is all about measurements, right? Like
Mhm.
taking these questionnaires and like understanding behaviors and then run some stats to see correlations. So I have all these quizzes that I usually have my clients take to learn more about themselves in order for us to like figure out what's good for you. So yeah, I definitely recommend like taking these quizzes. I can share a couple with you so that you can put in the show notes so your listeners can learn more about themselves.
Yeah, no, I fucking love that. That's amazing. And I love that you said instead of the communication answer for the couples, right? To go back to that, you said to get creative. That's amazing.
Yeah,
We fucking
do
love
something else.
that. Yeah. So
You don't
so
want penetrative sex? Like do something else.
right. Just fucking yeah, just figure it out, right? Suck it up, buddy. Okay, and so you're sort of we talked about single people like wanting to find like relationships, like that's the one thing you're seeing with single people. So give them some advice if there's single people listening to this and they're like, I just can't find anybody, everything sucks. Like what's your advice on that? Get creative, suck it up, buddy.
um, a lot of people are not even open to the love opportunities. They shoot it down like the first thing that they see. I would say, for example, I would talk to a woman and she's like, "Oh, dating in LA sucks. Like, there's no good men in LA, right?" And then I ask, like, "Oh, are you on Hinge? Are you on Match.com? Are you on Raya? Like, are you on some like no?" Because dating in LA sucks. I'm like, you're not even like opening yourself up to opportunities. You are not creating any opportunities for yourself. So, yeah, number one, be open to opportunities. Don't judge it. Don't judge the situation. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge other people yet. Like, there's so many good people. We're in LA. It's like millions and millions of people. You can't just be like, all these millions of people are terrible. It's not true. Like there's other people that find someone, like you will find someone too. You just have to be more open to it. And if you bring that kind of negativity to the date, like you go on a date and all you do is complain, no one's gonna want to date you.
Yeah. No, no, not at all.
Show up to have fun. That's always what I tell my clients is be open to opportunities. So set yourself up in places like Hinge, Raya, whatever. Like set yourself up in places where there are opportunities. If you want face to face, maybe go out to a nice, beautiful bar, sit at the bar, start a conversation with a stranger, like whatever. Like do the things that allow you to have more opportunities, and then bring yourself to the opportunity with fun, with playfulness, with creativity. So remember, going on a date is not a therapist. Don't complain.
For
Your
real.
date is not a therapist. Don't complain. Like, don't complain about your work. Don't complain about life. Don't complain about the society, the USA, like whatever. Have fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Um and you're great. You're amazing. So, I mean, this is all like fucking gold, right? For people watching and listening.
Thank
Like, you're
you.
welcome, guys.
Well, it's because you create an opportunity, right? You create a platform and allow other people to speak truth.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make your own energy, right? Come on.
Yeah.
Um, on on your Instagram, so you've got like ton of fucking amazing regular content. One of the things that you do, I think it's called quickies, right? Or five,
Yeah.
right? So okay, which I love, by the way, because it's quick and it's like, but sometimes you'll be like, wait, whoa, that one was insane or whatever. And one of the things that got me is when I was researching you, I think your assistant asked you um to name a taboo or something, and you said non-consensual sex, right? It wasn't like your favorite
Mhm.
taboo, or it was something whatever. And I was wondering if we could dive into the taboo of non-consensual sex, because
Mhm.
again, in my conversations around the show, when we talk about what turns people on and this, that, and the other, the non-consensual sex fantasy taboo comes up a lot more
Mhm.
than I would say pre-pandemic, right? It
Mhm.
used to be more like I don't know, like a step bro thing before the pandemic, and now it seems to be this wilder kind of non-consensual sex. So when you said that on that segment, was that something that you were noticing, like the taboo of non-consensual sex was something that turned you on personally? Was it something that was a taboo that you were noticing, or
Well, forced sex is top 5 sexual fantasy in America.
Mhm.
So that's data research from a book called Tell Me What You Want by Dr. Justin Miller. And in his research, he surveyed, I think, over 3,000 people. And the whole book talks about like top American sexual fantasies. And forced sex is one of the top 5. So when it comes to forced sex, like I think it's difficult to talk about, and I'm
Mm.
gonna just say it out loud. It's difficult to talk about like rape fantasy because of how, actual rape, how much it inflicts pain,
Right.
because how much it becomes this huge trauma in someone's life, and even uh the people take their own life from that kind of trauma. So that's why it's so hard to talk about, because it's like, how can you be wanting something that in actuality hurt and kill other women?
Mhm.
That's why it's so hard to say or to admit. Like, have I watched porn on forced sex? Like, yeah, I have. Like, it's a fantasy that I think a lot of women have, like losing control, not having any control, and like have your partner force sex on you. Let me tell you two different things though, because like a lot of people don't understand, like, oh my god, someone has this sexual fantasy, or they're sick, or they're ill. Like even other types of sexual fantasy, foot fantasy, furries, or whatever fantasy,
Right.
a fantasy is just a fantasy. A fantasy is something that you think about, not necessarily something you want to do. A lot of people have a fantasy that they never want to do.
Yeah.
It's two different functioning in your brain. Like a fantasy is just a fantasy, and people can argue otherwise, but social scientists have all agreed a fantasy is just a fantasy, doesn't mean that she wants to do it in real life. So when a woman says that she has, forced sex fantasy, non-consensual sex fantasy, it's just a fantasy, not necessarily want to do in real life. However, they may want to act it out in a certain degree. For example, I can be role playing with my partner, and I can be like, no, I don't want sex. Like, no, don't touch me. Right. Like role play.
Sure.
And he like forced sex on me, in which then I enjoy later in return. Uh, that's fine, because that's what I want to do. And that's what I consented to do. I consented to non consensual sex.
Right.
Right. So that's something that's totally fine. But I think that there are also like scary parts of the internet where incels are saying like, oh, these women, they say no, but they actually want it, like because of the forced sex fantasy. That is not true. Do not go around and just force sex on people. You will go to prison. So uh a fantasy is something that should be communicated and negotiated before happening in real life. And honestly, I have told like my partner so many of my fantasies, and we have communicated and doing different things. So I think it's completely normal for women to have that kind of fantasy, because it's like, oh yeah, you take control. You're the masculine one. You're the man in this situation. You take control. You take me. And
Right.
I think there's something sexy about that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I asked you that question towards the end here, because I wanted that to be a lasting thing that people take away from this episode, because so many times I have the conversation where people will tell me what turns them on or the fantasies that they have, and they'll be like, I'm so ashamed, or I feel so guilty, or I know it's sick, but or I have this thing. And it's like I wanted them to hear from a professional excuse me, that these things are normal regardless of
So
yeah,
normal.
yeah, darkness is normal, right? And you're right, like you can role play that out safely. You can watch porn safely and
Yes.
enjoy that fantasy. It doesn't mean that you want
Yes.
to go and be fucking gang raped by a bunch of fucking dudes or whatever. Like but it's that thing, like that's what makes it taboo. So I think it is
Right.
really important to like get that on record, because I did sort of see that same conversation, like it's so sick, but and I've had women tell me similar fantasies, right? And we've role played them out and done all the things and whatever. And it's like, um, again, I just want to break those barriers with this show where we talk about those things. And maybe someone walks away from this episode like, oh, okay, well, I'm not a fucking crazy person or whatever. So
Yay. I
thank you.
love that.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Yeah, for sure.
I love that. Thanks for bringing that up, because a lot of people do think that that particular fantasy is creepy. Like, why the fuck do I feel this way? Like, it's okay. You're normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's all normal, right? Like we all have dark sides, and they can be really fun when you fucking find a safe way to explore that shit. Take it from me. Okay, so I have this segment called the burner. It's roughly like 10 questions. They're a little more
Okay.
personal, they're a little more fun. We kind of move through them quickly. You have the choice to go through the burner, or you can just say no thanks, I want to get out of here. So it's totally up to you.
Okay.
Would you like to do the burner?
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. Question one: name something you wish men would stop doing.
Changing their fingering pattern when she says, I'm coming." Do the same thing.
So keep doing the same thing, don't go any
Yeah,
faster.
exactly.
Okay.
Don't change when we're like, yeah, don't change when we're about to come.
Yeah, no, that's fucking solid advice. Name something you wish women would stop doing.
Faking orgasms.
Yeah. Yeah. Name something you wish you would stop doing.
Let's see. Something I would stop doing. Being so busy.
Well, we're not even gonna go into that. Favorite, because I don't think you really do. I don't think you really do, but whatever.
I don't, Dustin. I suck at being less busy.
Yeah. Well, I think you like being busy. Um, favorite guilty pleasure
Ooh.
can be anything.
Does it have to be sex related?
Nope.
Preferably.
What? No, honestly, it can be like pretzels in the sun or some weird shit. I'm not.
uh smelling my vulva.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Guilty pleasure. Amazing, amazing. Tell us about an experience you had at a sex party.
um a woman, fingering a woman that I had just met.
Okay. Solid, solid. Name a person, alive or dead, that you want to have sex with, spend time with, but the catch is you only get to hang out with them, bang them, whatever, for 24 hours. Who is it?
Shakespeare.
Nice. Okay.
I want
Backstreet.
him to write me a sonnet.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Backstreet Boys or In Sync.
Oh fuck, that's hard. I'm gonna go with Backstreet Boys.
Okay. Okay. Um, Off the top of your head, again, one of the craziest sex stories from your life and experience.
Uh Started having sex with someone at a sex party and then having a little person join.
Nice. Okay. See, and I have follow-up questions, but we're not even gonna do it because
It's
we're in
not a part
the
of the burner though.
yeah, exactly. I'll get you next time though. Flaming hot or probably not. So, are you a fan of like the fucking flaming hot snacks and shit, or no?
I am.
Okay, flaming hot. Best kind of music to bang to.
No music.
No music. Okay. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Eh,
Uh-huh. I want to hear all the moan and the grunts.
right.
I want to get you.
Yeah. No, that's unfiltered. That's good. That's good shit. Um Say something. This is final question. Say something to one of your exes.
Fix your trauma.
Boom. Okay. Boom. All right. Fix your fucking trauma,
Boom.
bro. Okay, so that's it. Dr. Tara, thank you so much for being here on Sex Party. Where can people find you? Where can people work with you to make you busier?
Thank you so much, Dustin, for having me. This is so fun. It is a sex party. You can find me at my website, luvbites.co, luvbites.co. And all my social media is luvbites.co.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to have
My
you
pleasure.
back if you'll come back. So
Yes.
awesome. See you soon.
See ya. Bye.
Big thank you to my guest, Dr. Tara, for being on the show with me this week. Go show her some love over on Instagram. She got a ton of amazing, fun, cool, bite-sized content, updating it multiple times a day. It's a really good shit, and you'll love it. Speaking of things that you love, if you're loving a Sex Party and you're listening on platforms like Apple and Spotify, you can show that love if you wish by subscribing to the show. You can leave a rating, you can leave a review. You don't have to do this fucking snaky bullshit. But if you do choose to subscribe, if you do choose to leave a review or a rating, I love you and I appreciate you, because this is how the show becomes even bigger, more episodes, more specials, more fun things. Did I just give away a spoiler? Maybe. If you're watching on YouTube, hello, just checking in, making sure you're doing okay. You can subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You can like the video on YouTube. You can leave a comment. I appreciate it so much. Again, you don't have to, but if you do, I appreciate it so much. If you want to chat, hit me up on Instagram in the DM, and I will see you right back here next week.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at Sex Party FM. Follow Dustin at Dustin Rybka.